Host here.
There we go.
Don't want to call myself the teacher because I'm learning just along with you guys. So I'm going to pull up my slides just to kind of set the stage. And then like we've done in the last couple of these classes, I'd really like us to consider it more of a workshop, something that we're thinking about and, exploring together. The focus for this class, if this is our last class, I was trying to focus on tools, like how we're going to go about making these legacies that we've been thinking about real. And again, I think we can brainstorm for each other. And I don't know if somebody wants to be the class secretary, but I can't do it. It's a little hard for me to keep notes and do this part. But I thought to the extent we come up with some good ideas, maybe somebody could take notes and we could post it somewhere or add it to the presentation and post that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So let me share my screen and pull up the slideshow. And then, where is it? I wanted to start. There we go. Okay. So I'm hoping you guys can see the screen, right? Give you a thumbs up? Yep. Great. So just to kind of get ourselves oriented a little, like this is the third class about how to create a lasting legacy. We started with what people have given us that was meaningful in some way. Then that last class we talked about, the time, talent, and treasure. Thank you, Barbara. Like what kinds of things we might consider having that other people might take joy in receiving, either during our life or after we passed away. And then again, today I'm trying to focus on some practical ways to make those things happen. So again, just to kind of set the stage, I really think that legacy has to be more than money. I feel like it's a real missed opportunity that when I work with so many clients who don't take the time to talk about these things, I'm so busy with the mechanics of the documents, and I'm very busy trying to be a good lawyer and not get sued for malpractice. And so, we don't often feel the space or the time to have these kinds of conversations. So I thank you all very much for allowing me to do this with you. Promised you a poem for each class. So this one is just the beginning of a poem, but there's a kind of poem called a catalog poem or a list poem, which consists usually of a list of something related to some theme. So this is one that I thought kind of was nice for this class, which is, this idea of gathering what we have and offering it in some way. So it's called, this is only the first paragraph. So Where I'm From by George Ella. I am from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from the dirt under the back porch, black, glistening, it tasted like beets. I am from the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm, whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. So just a catalog of some very specific details of her childhood. I thought was kind of a nice poem to start with. And again, we used this rubric or this way of thinking about legacies as time, talent, and treasure. So those are our three buckets. So here's what I remembered from our last class of things that people brought up as kinds of legacies they might want to leave. So I'm going to just kind of throw those out there, and then I'll see what people want to talk about. So one was supporting an organization that was meaningful to them. And the example was a Japanese school of culture. One of our members realized that she's been very involved with the school for a long time, but she never really thought about leaving them her library of resources that she compiled over the years for them. So supporting a community organization was one. Creating an experience with loved ones. So one of our members talked about grandkid camp, right? Taking all the grandkids away for a week each summer. So this idea of sharing some experience with the people that you care about, why you can be here to do it with them, I thought was a beautiful idea. Somebody else talked about collecting photographs, scrapbooking. This made other people of the group want to hurl themselves in front of a train. So, it's not for everybody. So that's but one idea. Another one was writing a family history, right? So somehow putting down some piece of the history of the family that you want to pass on. Another one was collecting oral histories, right? getting stories, just capturing them with our phones, if nothing else. And Kat talked about how easy it is to set up a YouTube channel. So that's a video way of doing it. So audio or video, but somehow capturing these stories before the people who have them leave us. And then there was this, a lot of enthusiasm actually last time about collecting and organizing information in sort of a When I Die book. Remember that? We talked about using Google Docs or Word to pull together all the information that would make it easy for people to help deal with our death. And one of our members, who can't be here today, but she asked if we could record this. I said it will be recorded. She shared with me she calls it her When I Die book. This is Christine Helwick. So I started with that, and then there's a book. Oh, where did I put that book? It's right here. It's called Get It Together. It's from nolo.com. And this is like a workbook for how to pull all that information together into a binder. And I find it quite fascinating that of all the books that Nolo sells, this is one of the best sellers, which tells me that this is something that people really struggle with, right? How do I pull it all together? Where do I put it? What do I gather? What's important? What's not important? So I also looked into this book to get some ideas for us about what we might want to organize and catalog. Again, that's called Get It Together. That's the name of that book. So how do we make things real, right? Like, so how do we go about doing this? And so I put together my thoughts and I looked for some tools and things to offer. But I guess before we go into that, I guess I would want to know from the group here is, maybe I'll stop sharing for a minute. I'd like to get a sense of, would that be useful for people? Should we go into sort of like each of these 6 areas and brainstorm a little and talk about ways that people could make that real if that's what they want to do? Like maybe give me most people have their cameras off. So if you could somehow communicate, maybe the chat box, if you're feeling shy, just say, yeah, that's a good idea, or no, I don't want to do that. I guess in the absence of any feedback, I'll just plow ahead. But is that something people would find useful? Okay, Barbara's letting me know. Karen's letting me know.
I'm not sure what your question is about.
So would it be helpful if we just sort of take each one of those ideas and like unpack it a little in terms of how we might make those things true? So I'm just going to do it because there's only a few people with their cameras on. So I hope this is helpful to people. So let me go back to my screen.
Is the book, I'm sorry, one other question. Is the book you're talking about something you wrote?
No, it isn't.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not a book I wrote. It's probably a book I should read.
Yeah. So since I wasn't here, I'm sorry, but I didn't write down your name. So how about if we start?
Sorry, I didn't really introduce myself. My name's Liza Hanks, Hanks, and I'm an estate planning attorney in Mountain View. And I am an author. I've written a couple books, but not that one, for Nolo Press. And I have a podcast that I would love all of you to listen to that's now called Women in Wills. It used to be called something else, but I decided to focus on information and empowerment for women around this topic, although men are certainly welcome to listen. Now you know who I am. Sorry. So, and thank you. And please feel free to jump in now with questions and comments, right? So the first tranche of things that we talked about was maybe supporting charitable organizations or organizations in our community that are meaningful for us. And I'm really glad that Barbara's on the call because she's a real expert on the financial side of doing this in creative ways. And I'm going to encourage her to chime in here. Okay. But these 3 things came to my mind, right? One is you can name this organization in your will or your trust. You can say, upon my death, I want to leave $10,000 to Guide Dogs for the Blind or Avenidas or the SPCA or any group that is meaningful for you, and they will love to get that gift from you at your death. You can donate during life, of course. The benefit to that is you get to see the benefit of your gift and you get to hear people say thank you, and it can be a really meaningful experience for you. And the second or the third thing here is making a gift of appreciated assets. And that's that's where the financial magic comes in, where there's some real benefits to doing these gifts, and there's some very beneficial tax aspects to doing this, which I'm happy to talk about. And of course, I just realized that this last night I left one out, which is naming a beneficiary of a retirement account or part of a retirement account is a very tax efficient way to help an organization. So let me start with that one, actually. So let's say I have an IRA and I say I want to leave 10% of my IRA to my church or my temple or the local pet shelter, right? Well, what's great about that is if 10% of my IRA is $10,000, if I give $10,000 to that group, they get $10,000 because they don't have to pay income tax on the withdrawal from that retirement account. I'm not talking about Roth here, I'm just talking about regular ones. If I give that $10,000 to my kid, Sam, he's going to take $10,000 out, but he's not going to get $10,000 because he has to pay income tax, right? On the $10,000 at whatever his rate is. Now, Sam is actually a student at the University of Pittsburgh, so I don't think his tax rate is, I don't think he pays taxes yet. But, you know, imagine your kids in their 50s or something who actually have a profession would be paying, you know, 30%, 37% of that $10,000. So if you have a charitable intent, if you have a retirement plan, it's a really great place to go first. The second thing that people don't often know about is this gift of appreciated assets. So let's talk about stock. And I'm going to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to let Barbara talk too, if she wants to. You want to? Yes.
Excuse
never
me,
really-
sorry, can I, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Is this the writing class? Did I
No.
get bumped out of that?
Kat, can you address that for me?
So
Is
this
there a-
isn't,
It started with a poem.
no,
and-
this, so this is not, do you mean memoir writing?
The memoir writing, that's what I clicked on. And that,
Oh.
and we started with a poem.
No, that is not what this is. Yeah.
So I don't know how to get back into that class. I apologize, but that's why everything was so unfamiliar.
That's all right.
Did you start with a poem? Wait, here, let me, I wrote down. Was this the class that started with, maybe we did from a poem and longitudinal poem, and was that this class?
No.
mm,
No, so
No.
that I didn't touch anything except the view. So
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong place.
Well, maybe you're in the right place.
No. I already know about, I was a
So-
participant in some of this. That's why I'm confused.
Okay, so I'll talk to, we can move this to an email if that would be okay. Because I need to reach out to my supervisor about the memoir.
Okay, I'm going to go back into my email and see if I can re-enter whatever I was in.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very
Mhm.
much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Sorry
Sorry.
about the interruption. Yeah.
It's
No
okay.
problem.
I think like getting lost in Zoomland is just a problem none of us had before. I'm very sympathetic.
I don't quite know. It says it's recording. I'm going to say leave, and nice to have met you all.
You as
I
well.
may maybe see you again. Okay. Thank you.
I love that. That just filled me with delight. Okay, so getting back to things. A gift of an appreciated asset is usually something like, so let's keep it simple and say stock. So if I have some stock that I bought for $10 a share, and now it's worth $100 a share because it was a good idea. If I sell that stock, I have to pay tax on the $90 of gain, right? Because I made money. That's fine. Making money is a good thing. But if I would like to do something with that stock that didn't make me have to pay taxes, one good thing I could do was give those shares to the organization that I want to support. And like the retirement account, that group can, if they're capable of accepting a gift like that, they can sell those shares for $100 a share and keep all $100. They don't have to pay $30 in taxes on the $90 that stock is appreciated. So they get the benefit of, let's say I gave 100 shares. I can't do the math. Let's say I give them $10,000 worth of stock and they get $10,000 worth of stock, and I get to take a deduction for $10,000. Versus if I had sold that stock, I would have to pay a bunch of taxes on that. I'd pay about $3,000, I think, of taxes. I don't know exactly, but about a third of that $90 share gain would be subject to tax. So selling the shares and then giving the money to the charity would reduce the gift by quite a bit, right? So the direct gift of that stock to the charity is very beneficial to the charity. So those are two just like easy things that we could all do to help organizations that we care about. And Barbara, would you like to add anything there?
Sure, and I think it's good to differentiate between giving gifts during life to charity versus giving it at death. So just to kind of conclude Liza's part about the appreciated stock, that is a great asset to use for giving gifts during life. And another great asset to use for giving gifts during life is by making what's called a qualified charitable distribution from your IRA. So people over age 70 and a half can direct, $100, $1,000, whatever you'd like, to a charity. And that also has some tax benefits to the owner of the IRA. I don't want to get into all the details here because it'll make people's heads explode. But the takeaways are, if you have charitable intent during your life, then think about the most bang for the buck. And the most tax efficient way is to either give gifts from your IRA. Again, they're called QCDs, or qualified charitable distributions. If you're over age 70 and a half, you're allowed to do that, or giving appreciated stock. And one other phrase to write down in case you do think of the appreciated stock might be something I'm interested in, there's a concept called a donor advised fund, sometimes abbreviated as DAF. So that's a way to kind of package your gifts. You can donate appreciated stock. Let's say you have a lot of Apple stock at a very low cost. You can donate it to a donor advised fund, which is kind of a holding pen for charitable giving. And then over time, you can dole out the gifts from that bucket. That's, your gift fund. You can give it to the end user charity. So again, too much detail to go into in this presentation. I think the goal here is, if these are topics that you think might apply to you and are interested in learning more about, write down the key names. Again, donor advised fund relating to gifting assets, or qualified charitable distributions for gifting from your IRA during life. Just stop and take a breath there. And then I completely support what Liza said about the best asset to give at your death. If you do have traditional IRA type assets, that's the best gift or best asset to use for your charitable giving at death. And by naming the charity as all or part beneficiary of your IRA. One of the chat questions came up that said, is it better to give a percentage or a fixed amount of your, let's say, IRA on the beneficiary form? My preference is percentages, because that's usually how the form is structured, but I'll let Liza weigh in.
Actually, I think you can only do it in percentages. I don't think you can do a specific amount on a beneficiary designation. That's the information I've been given.
That matches.
One last thing I want to say is that Barbara and I would be happy to do a course, like maybe a 1-hour webinar on these, and any of these topics, but certainly this one. We've given classes at Avenidas before. So I guess a follow-up to this course is, if there's anything that we've talked about, that I've talked about, that you want more information about, or you want a class about, let Avenidas know, that you would like, we'd like to continue the conversation and go where you guys want to go with it. I think that's fair. Yeah.
And then just me?
Yeah.
Okay, just one other point. I did give a presentation, I think it was either early January or late January or late February, I think, of this year, even though it feels like 5 years ago, that, Kat, I think you recorded, and I don't know if it's still available on demand somewhere. I don't think it's posted publicly to the Avanitas website, but it goes into, it was an hour long, and it talked about in more detail about giving highly appreciated assets and other things during life using a donor advised fund. And it also talked about the using your retirement account either at life or at death. So if that's of interest, contact Kat and she could potentially send you the link.
I could, yeah, I still have it. I haven't uploaded it to anything. It was kind of like in a nebulous space for a while. We weren't sure what we were going to do with it, but I can upload it and send it out to anyone who is interested.
Yeah, I'd rather it not be kind of publicly available, but just if it's available to people who want to hear it, you know, I'm fine sending the link. I don't know if that's technically possible, but
Yeah, and I could
Okay.
certainly send you the link to distribute at your will.
okay, thanks.
Great. Okay, so let's go on to the next idea. And then we'll circle back. I think I was just going to go through these slides and then, you know, that we'll have time to chat, I think, I hope. So this next one, why is it not talking to me? Is experiences, right? So this was the kid camp, you know, grandkid camp. And I'm not sure if the person who was talking about that last week is here, but it was such a great idea that she was going to liberate her children from their children for a week every summer and take them away and have fun with them. And I said, oh my God, you should do like a newsletter or a scrapbook and like start collecting those over time so that the kids could see what it was like, you know, when they were little together with her. And like, she loved that idea. So that kind of got me thinking like, well, what kind of experiences can we share with people we care about? So, you know, take a trip, but also share a hobby. I'm not sure why rhinoceros came up as an icon. It kind of made me laugh, so I kept it. Perhaps your hobbies are rhinoceroses, going to zoos, sewing, flying, you know, knitting, like anything, bird watching. That's something my husband and I have like recently gotten into. Dog training, right? Like anything that gives you joy. Odds are it would give people joy to do it with you and learn from you. And then teaching a skill, right? So sewing, gardening, cooking, canning, knitting, right? All of those things that, you know, I gave my son the 35 millimeter camera that my father gave to me when I turned 18. He's 20, so I just sent it to him and he got it like fixed back up. And, you know, he was like delighted beyond words that it was an actual physical camera and not a digital camera like we're used to. Like he was thrilled about this idea of like film and developing. And I thought, well, how interesting, you know, like to me, when I got that camera, there wasn't any other kind of camera out there to give, right? But now it's like this cool relic, right? And he's just super into it. So there's an example of something I wouldn't have thought of as like a beautiful thing to share with my son, but it turned out to be something really meaningful for him. Creating a ritual, right? And so that was sort of that idea of like every year you take the kids away at camp, but why don't you memorialize it? Why don't you make it a ritual? Why don't you create maybe a newsletter, or maybe the kids make a book every summer together, right? With this idea that little by little by little, you're going to create something bigger than just that one moment. And one of the things we talked about last time was maybe writing a birthday letter every year to your grandchildren or to your children or to your spouse even, or to your siblings, right? But just looking for ways to create rituals. I think especially in this modern era when we're all zooming around, like literally at the moment, but figuratively before COVID, taking time to slow down and create some touch points in the year or in the day or in the week, I think is a beautiful thing. And I wish I did it more. And then holidays, right? Or even creating silly holidays, right? Like the ice cream ritual in the summer or something like that. So I don't know if people have
mind me
anything to share.
interrupting, Liza. I actually, you kind of reminded me of something when you were going over these. My mom passed away about 8 years ago now, but she kind of left us with her own, you know, ritual, and it ties into a few different things. It's the ritual plus a holiday plus teaching us how to cook. And so every Christmas morning she would make the Pillsbury cinnamon rolls. So even though our family is kind of scattered to the winds across the country now, we all make cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning.
Right.
so that's just kind of something, and always thinking about her when I do that. And this year I decided that I would maybe stray away from Pillsbury and see about making my own cinnamon rolls from scratch. So
How'd they turn out?
Hmm?
How'd they turn out?
I haven't done it yet, but I'll tell you after Christmas.
It's Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like last year we couldn't be together for the holidays because of COVID, right? So I
Yeah.
sent the kids all the ingredients to make this saffron bread that we make every Christmas morning. I mean, I'm Jewish. I don't even celebrate Christmas, right? But I love making bread. And that's something that their grandfather did. So I sent them all the ingredients and the recipes and told them to make them themselves. It was just like one way to share something when it was so painful to be apart. So anyway, there's lots of people on this call, and I'm sure, I hope this has sparked some ideas that maybe you hadn't thought about, that are beautiful things that you can share now with people and create things that last after your death. If
Karen's
anybody else
hand is
wanna-
up. If Karen has her hand up if she wants it.
Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, so I was just on a visit to New England to my 96-year-old mother, and she sent back with me a Raggedy Ann doll to give to her namesake Dorothy in Los Angeles. But the nicest thing is that she wrote a beautiful letter. And it says, I'm at the end of my life, but you are at the beginning. And it's just wonderful to have the object, but also her words. And I just, it was just neat to have something tangible to give this little girl who may not be able to fly to see her grandmother, given all the pandemic. So anyway, I just love the idea, Liza, of you doing this class. And what's really useful is your slides, because it bullet points all of these kinds of sharing things that we did in the first two classes. And it's a great summary. And I hope you feel appreciated.
I do now. Thank you. Great. Well, you'll see in a few slides, I have some more ideas about that idea of words and how we might share them with the next generation. And my dog is upset with me because I locked him out of the room. And maybe I might even see if we could build a class around this book, which I'll tell you in a minute. A different book, not the Getting It Together book. But that's 2 slides away. This next one are photographs. And so I thought, well, like I am one of those people who find it hard to, I don't really enjoy putting photographs in books too much, somewhat, but I know some people really don't like it. And so there's some online tools now that can make this a lot easier. So here's 3 companies, blurb.com, Shutterfly, and Snapfish, that make it really easy to upload pictures and then get back books in the mail. And I put Blurb here, that's what's on the picture, because my daughter did this for my husband. I forget what, if it was for his birthday or for Christmas or something, but she just picked out a bunch of really beautiful pictures of them together and made it into a book using this blurb where, she just uploaded the pictures, and in the mail come this beautiful hardback book. So she was able to put the pictures, upload them, and then arrange them on the page, added text. We kind of did it together, but mostly she did it. I paid for it. And then, she hit create and made a book for him, came in the mail, that he really loved. So here's 3 different companies that offer some tools. Of course, if your pictures are paper, like not digital, then you have to scan them, right? So that you can use this software. And I didn't go into detail about photo scanners, but those are also not that expensive. And you can also take your photos somewhere and have them scanned, so you don't have to do it, so that you can use these tools easier. I don't know if anybody else has had experience with these or wants to share anything they know. Not so much.
I made
Go
my
ahead.
wedding album using one of these software or one of these websites, and it was great.
Yeah. And you can even do it at like the local Walgreens. I mean, when my mom passed away about 10 years ago, I'm not sure why they made me do this job, but somehow everyone, I think I was the youngest, but like everyone decided I was the one who's going to have to make the slideshow for the memorial. So I just like sobbed for like 2 months.
Oh.
I had all these great pictures of my mom that I'd never seen before, like when she was 16, you know. So I turned those into a book and I gave them to all the siblings and stuff. But I did that like at Walgreens with, I had a CD with all the pictures. A friend helped me do that. And then it was pretty easy to make a book again. It's just a nice way to share.
That's my schedule.
Karen, go ahead.
So I used Shutterfly quite a bit. And in fact, on this last trip, I just came back from 2 weeks, one in New England and one in Kansas City. And I'm on the third of my Shutterfly books right now. So I can put my email in the chat if people want to ask me questions. The reason I'm pounding so hard is that they have free extra pages beyond the 20 that you pay for. And so I'm doing 50-page albums. It's really nice because the drives with my mom, she pointed out the house where she grew up in Randolph, Vermont. And I was able to take from my digital files a picture of my mom and her mother and put it in this Shutterfly book. And it does take a little more time, and I'm pretty experienced, but I just think, and I won't have to buy 5 copies for family members or things like that. I can just share it digitally on the computers. And so I'm just going, wow, this is so great. And I'm feeling like I'm doing a big part of the legacy stuff right now. But I'll put my email in the chat if people want to contact me about Shutterfly.
I think they can also, if they might be able to order their own physical copy of the book. I think, yeah. I think if you just have the link, I like Shutterfly myself as well. They're really good about that, and kind of, they've got all sorts of different little things. You could even make a blanket with someone's picture on it. There's all sorts of stuff you can do on there, yeah.
So we're living in a time that's making some of this easier. So then another thing that people talked about, we're writing, a second, I think I missed a slide. How do I go back? Maybe not. Okay. Collecting an oral history, right? So we talked about just like getting people to talk, getting relatives to talk, getting people to tell us their stories. And I found this funny little YouTube video about how to record an interview with on a cell phone, which I could play for you, but maybe I could just, what she was saying, it's somebody from a museum, but that, we can just use the record button on our phones and we can capture these stories. And I thought, and then once you have it as a digital file, you can save it, you can send it to people, you could post it, we could talk about how Google Docs works, you could post it where people can hear it. So, just this kind of nice idea that we have this technology that just makes it really easy to record people. So that's another idea. And then I got sort of interested in writing family histories. And so, because people have talked about that a lot as well, but it's a little intimidating, like how on earth do you get that done? How do you start? So, I looked at some websites and these were like some good ideas, I thought, right? Define the scope of what you're trying to talk about. You can't really tell the whole history from the beginning of time. Maybe you want to just tell a piece of a story. Know your purpose, like why are you doing it? What are you trying to convey to people? Because again, that helps define the scope. Make a plan or an outline before you get started writing. Use pictures, use prompts, which is, I want to talk more about that on the next slide. Use records of documents. And I love this idea of beginning in the middle. So you don't have to start when somebody was born, you could start when your grandparents got married, you could start when you got married, you could start when you had a kid, you could start when the house burnt down. Like you can start in the middle of something. You don't always have to start at the beginning. So those are just some ideas that I thought were good. And then I found this book, which I thought was so great. So it's a book of prompts to help you write this. You could just write it in the book. So the book is a workbook, really, for grandparents to create a journal for their grandkids. So sort of like the doll, right, with the story. And I thought, wow, what a great idea for a book. And people really liked this book. I like read reviews of it. So there, it's just a bunch of prompts that help you use your own words to tell your life story from childhood to the present day. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I thought, oh, I wonder if we could, that might be a class, right? Like we could all buy the book and do it piece by piece, over a couple of weeks. Just a thought. So anyway, that's a resource I didn't know existed, and I thought that was pretty fun. Because I think writing to prompts for a lot of people helps get over that overwhelming blank page problem. I mean, all writers face that, right? Like, I don't know any writers who sit down to a blank page and think, I got this. I think most writers sit down and think, yeah, this is the time I'm going to fail for sure. This is going to be it. Like, I'm going to discover I have like nothing left to say. So that's a really common feeling, even for professional writers and artists. There's certainly an experience for people who isn't something they write that often or do. So I thought this was a great resource. And then last, and then I'll stop talking and let us just talk together, collecting and organizing essential information. So we talked at the last class, Christine talked about, she used Google Docs. I don't know how familiar people are with Google Docs, so I thought I would share my screen and show you one and just show you how I do it. But I created one with all the categories of things that I thought might be useful to share with people. So I'm gonna change the sharing that I'm doing and show you that. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this share. And then there's probably a more graceful way to do this, but I don't know what it is. So hang on a second. What did I do? Is it here? I think, well, here, this is just the example that I came up with of ideas that you could use, of things that you might want to collect. And Kat's are you gonna email this out to everybody in the class? Was that what we decided? So,
Yes.
Okay, so after we look at what's in here, I'll show you how to do a Google Doc too. So I kind of think that there's like sort of three main categories of things that you might think about collecting for people. So one is like personal details, right? Things you want people to, like after you die, things that you want people to know about. And these are like how to take care of my pets, how to take care of my kids. I didn't put that in here because most of us have grown-up kids, right? If you have little kids, you wouldn't want that. How you want people to take care of your body, right? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? If so, where? If you were cremated, do you want your ashes scattered anywhere? Do you want to be buried in a forest? Do you want to be thrown into the ocean? Do you want to go to Macy's, like football stadiums? I've heard it all. Death certificate information. So when somebody dies, and if you're there, there's a death certificate has to be put together, and they ask questions that like I didn't know, like, what was your father's mother's maiden name? I don't know. I didn't know that off the top of my head. So, so that's, social security information and parents and birthdays. That's information that would be nice to pull together for people. Where things are in your house, right? Like, where are your central documents? Where do you keep your passwords? Life legacy stories. So this is sort of what we're talking about. If you want to tell somebody your story about your life, what you intended, what your values were, or you want to tell about the origin of your family or where your grandparents came from, great way to pass it on would be to put it in a document like this. People to notify, right? So who do you want to have come to your memorial, and how are your kids going to be able to get in touch with them? I mean, I remember having to figure that out for my dad, and we had to go through all his emails, right? Because we didn't really know. We knew some of his friends. I'm sure we missed some of them. What would you want to have at that celebration? What stories? What music? What food? Are there charities that you'd want to receive donations in your memory after you die? Right? These are all great things, and many of them were from Christine. How about memberships and communities that you're part of? Right? Are you in a golf club, a tennis club? Friends of the library, like what, a lot of that dies with people. And then, we don't know to notify them of your passing. And then who prepares your taxes, right? Because after you die, there's still one more tax return to do. Very helpful to go back to the person who did it last year. If your kids or your loved ones know who that is, super helpful. And I thought maybe after I stop talking, we could add to this list, and maybe I'll be the secretary. Then there's legal documents, right? So advanced care directives, any medications that are important that people know about. That would be more if you're sick, I think, than if you're dead, right? Medications are a bit too late then, but if you're ill and you're hospitalized, it is really helpful to get that medication because you may not be hospitalized where you live. I've definitely had that happen in my family and with clients where somebody will fall ill and their primary physician is somewhere else. And they're in the hospital like in San Jose and their doctor's in San Francisco, and they're on a whole bunch of medications that they need to get every day. It can be important for the treating physicians here to know what to do. End of life information is in an advance directive often, but if you have information you want people to know about, I want to be at home, I want to be listening to Bach, not Willie Nelson, I want, I want massage oil, like I want chocolate, like whatever you think would be a nice thing to have at your end of life, like write it down, let people know. You want your durable power of attorney, your will, and your trust, right? Those are all the legal documents that people will need to take care of your estate after you pass or when you're sick or incapacitated. And then the third bucket is asset information, right? A lot of times people die and it's like some detective work involved, and Barbara can speak to this too, where, if somebody's really organized, that's great. But if somebody isn't really organized and they die, sometimes it takes a long time to figure out what they own, where it is, how to transfer it. So leaving your loved ones information about the assets in your trust, if you have one, like real property, bank accounts, investment accounts, things that aren't in your trust, if you don't have a trust, bank accounts, investment accounts, again, real estate. After people die, like automatic bill payments can be a problem. Who's getting paid? Where are they getting paid? Where are they getting paid from? When are they getting paid? Because you die and the bills keep coming for a while till you get everything shut down. So it's helpful to know how to do that and where. Credit cards are important, right? We have to pay the last balance. Government benefits can matter, right? If somebody's on Social Security, we usually know that. And Social Security takes that last payment back after someone passes away. But there can be other benefits and pensions that we have to deal with and we should know about. Cars, how they're registered, where the pink slips are. Retirement accounts and pensions, what you have, who the beneficiaries are. Life insurance policies, what you have, who the beneficiaries are. And passwords, if you want people to have them after you die, it's a good idea to write them down because tragically, I've had clients who've had a loved one pass away and they can't get into their Apple email or their iCloud documents without a court order because they don't have the password of the person who died. Just person dying unexpectedly in this case, with everything, including like passwords, laptop, phone. All of their taxes were paid electronically, and all of that information was in the iCloud, and the surviving spouse had to go to court to get it. So if that person had left behind passwords, it would have saved her a lot of money and time. So that's everything I could think of that would be a very useful thing to have. And now I want to show you how you could do it if you wanted to do it with Google Docs. So I'm going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to share this screen, which is not what I want to show you. So Google Docs is, Google is a free service. You get Gmail, whatever. You can also sign up for Google Docs, and it's also free. And I have an account. I kind of forget how I got it, but I don't think it was that hard to do. I think I just went to Google Docs and added myself. Maybe if I already had a Gmail account, that was easier. I forget that part. Maybe Kat could speak to it. But to create a new document, you just press this plus button here. And it's just like a blank sheet of paper. It's just like Word. So here's my example doc, and then I just type in words, right? And it's really like Microsoft Word, right? the only difference is it lives not on your computer, right? But it lives up in the cloud and you can share it with people. So here's a link to share. And I could share it with my sister, or I could share it with my children, and then they could see it too. That's why Christine, our class member, used Google as a place for her to put all the information, because she could share it with the people that she wanted to share it with. It's private otherwise, right? Nobody can see it unless you give them the link. So if you're comfortable with putting this kind of information in the cloud, you could do it that way. Or alternatively, right, you could do it the way or you could do it as a Word document, which is why I did it both ways, and you could send that Word document to people. And then the Google Documents, just like Word documents, can be organized in files, right? So, you know, you could have a folder of legal information, you could have a folder of personal information, you could have a folder of asset information, and then have separate pieces of, you know, documents inside of those folders. So I hope that's, you know, helpful, but that's the advantage of putting it up in the cloud, is it's dynamic, right? So if I make a change, then my kids will see the change. If I do it in a Word document, I have to send them a new Word document, right? Because that Word document is like frozen, static, all right? A document that's shared online can evolve and change, and everybody will have access to the newest version when they go there. So, yeah, so why don't I put the Word version of the story up there? And if anybody has ideas about other things we can add, I'll add them as we talk. And then we'll share them updated version after the class. And we have about 10 minutes left. So, and if you have questions or comments about anything else I talked about, now's the time. So have at it. Barbara. Oh, you're on mute. Can't hear you.
Where
There
to
you go.
find the key for the safe deposit box?
Oh, yes. So that would be where
Well,
the key is.
whether there was one, but it took me 2 years to find the key my dad had.
Right. I personally have lost 2 of them, and I can tell you for $150, I'll drill the box open.
I'm cheap.
I'm disorganized. So, okay, what else? That's a good one. Nothing? Crickets?
I think for the death certificate information, my mom said for my dad that she got multiple copies because you need to disperse them widely. And people, you know, in the flurry of all the stuff at death, don't even think about things like that.
Yes, you're right.
So I think she got 12 or 15 copies just so that they were on hand when agencies demanded them.
Yes, I usually tell people to get 5 to 10. The other thing is I have scanned the death certificates for my parents and my husband's parents, and save that information for my kids in case they ever want to do any family histories or anything like that. So that's a good one. The 2 things that I remember not knowing was the Social Security information on the maiden name of the decedent. Those are not things I knew off the top of my head. I had to get those filled out for people. Anybody else have anything they think would be good to add? Barbara again.
Let me just do one more. I take care of my mom, who's 92. I mean, take care of her financial stuff, and having a little notebook of every single password and other important account number, this and that, is very useful for me now while she's alive. And I can't imagine doing what I do for her without having that. I happened to put that together while she was still responsible for her own finances, but wanted my help every now and then. So I just thought, well, let me, instead of having her have to hunt for her password, I'll keep it in a book. And then it turned out she ended up in the hospital for a couple of months. And because I had that information in advance of needing it, you know, knowing I was going to need it, it made it really helpful. So even though your thing is, well, you added what if I get sick or die. So having that, if you're helping another person, is just so important these days of everything is electronic.
Okay, so I actually added it up into personal details too. Right, I added get sick because I thought, you know, a lot of these aren't just after death things. These are also incapacity planning, especially things like medications, right? Oh, I would say if we're doing that also, name of doctors, right? Like when my father got sick here, my father got sick in San Jose, but he died here, but he lived in San Francisco. And I had a lot of trouble at first coordinating between his cardiologist in San Francisco and the ICU guys down at Good Samaritan Hospital, because they didn't know my dad, right? And he had a lot of medications and they all had, and if he didn't get them, it was complicated, right? And it can be for older people. So doctors and medications was, once we sorted that out, things got a little better, but at first it was chaos.
I do want to say one of the things that helped me when my mom passed away, which was very sudden, none of us were expecting it. She actually had autofill turned on her browser. So we were able to log into some of her accounts, and we didn't really have to hunt for the passwords because they were already filled in because of the browser. So Chrome does that, Firefox does that, I think. Microsoft Edge does that as well. I'm not sure about Safari, but that usually helps.
But you had to have access to her computer to do that. And sometimes computers are password protected.
That's true.
So that's something to think about if people want, like I know that because like once my dad was dying, he was like, oh, here's my password for my computer. I'm like, I don't care about that. And then like later, I'm like, God, I'm so glad he gave that to us, right? Because that's how we figured out who like invite to his memorial. Like that's how, there was a lot of stuff on his computer we needed, right? But I didn't even think to ask because I was sort of busy helping him die, right? I wasn't thinking about any of that. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that slips through the cracks.
So
Yeah.
anyway, anybody else who hasn't had a chance to speak? I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have good ideas here.
Yeah, feel free to type in the chat or raise your hand or just speak up.
Yeah.
You can unmute and talk as you like.
Also, or about anything else that I brought up today, right? Any other questions about any of the other kinds of legacies we've talked about together? I think we've, you as a group have really helped me think this through. I'm really glad we did this class. Actually, it's given me some ideas about how to talk to my clients and how to teach this again if I get the chance. So.
I haven't had a chance to speak, but I'd like to say that I apologize that I haven't been able to make the 2 prior sessions, but I'm hoping that I might be able to get notes or links or information
Oh,
from.
I have the recordings. I'll send those. I usually send the recording of the class and then I'll send the playlist of all the recordings. So you'll get all of it.
That's fantastic. The other thing is that I've learned many new things just by the conversation and the presentation that really are going to be so helpful for me in I've been thinking about legacy and working on that, but now I have much more to work with. And I have a guidebook and lots of great information. So I wanted to say thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
And I just wanted to chime in. I've been in and out of this class today because I left my friend's house late. I'm driving home. I've been caregiving for my mom, and I take a 2-leg trip to get home. And my sister-in-law died yesterday.
Aww.
And getting messages back and forth, and the caregiver is quitting, and we have to get a new one. It's just, so I wasn't in all of this, but I heard your thing about the passwords. And I'm trying to do that, but also in one of the California state caregiver resource agencies, I'm taking a class for caregivers through there, and she's suggesting we keep a notebook with all this kind of information on your loved one, so that if something happens to you, you can pass it off to a brother or a sister or somebody. To know the doctor's names and the Medicare card and the driver's license and anything like that. She has a table of contents of things that should go into this notebook.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm looking forward to getting the recording of today since I have only got snippets of it. So thanks.
Well, actually, I'd say based on the day you just described, you're in the thick of it. You haven't been in and out of it. You are living it, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, in and out of your presentation, but yeah.
Yeah. No, you're on the front lines. No, thank you for that. I mean, I guess, that's not a bad way to wrap this up, which is to say that to the extent that we can think through any of this before we have the kind of day our caller just had, right? It's good, right? It's really hard to put this stuff together in a crisis, this personal information. And it's really hard to think about legacy when you're just so involved in the day-to-day caretaking of someone who's super ill. Like, the time to be thinking about this is now, when we have the luxury of health and time. I really do think that. And the other thing I wanted to mention in the last few minutes is on Monday of this week, I was on forum, on KQED's forum, and I can share the link with Kat so she can share the link with you. But I was really honored to be on a panel with a palliative care physician named Sunita Perry, and then Michael Hebb, who's a writer up in the Northwest, who's written a book called Death Over Dinner. And the conversation was about how to talk about end of life with family members, and how the pandemic has helped or hurt, or, people's ability to have these conversations, and how to have them, and what's talk about. So yeah, they were really great panelists. So that's a good show to listen to if you're interested in this topic as well. So I want to thank you guys all for coming and for putting up with 3 classes on this stuff. If there's anything that I talked about that you feel like would be something you'd like to explore further in maybe a 1-topic class, please let Kat know or Barbara know at Avenidas, and we can see what happens from here. And if not, I think we got a lot done. I think we all learned from each other. I hope we did. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Liza.
You're welcome. I guess the last thing is, and I'll have Kat send this out too, I just started a new online community called Women in Wills. It's free to join. And I'm going to try to use that as a place to continue these conversations and educate people on these issues. It's free to join, and it's kind of a fun platform. We can talk to each other, we can learn from each other, and I can post articles. So I hope if you're interested, you join me there, because I'm just getting started there. That's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My dog will forgive you for locking him out for an hour. Take care.
Well, I really appreciate it. It's very, very informative. I love it.
Great. Well, I enjoyed it too.
Yes, thanks. Thank you,
Thank you all
Liza.
so much. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Bye.
Liza.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you. The When I Die list is going to go out in an email, right?
Yes.
I'll send you the updated version in a second, Kat, along
Yes,
with the
please
link
do.
to KQED. Okay.
Okay.
All
Awesome.
right.
Okay.
gotta go to
Thank
work.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.